I knew I was screwed the second I hit traffic on Vine Street. Every light turned red like it was personal. The kind of night where your own city seems to work against you. By the time I found parking 3 blocks away and half legal, I was already 20 minutes late. I jogged the last stretch, breath frosting in the air, trying to tell myself it was fine. Dana knew I was coming. I'd sent the text. But even as I reached the side entrance of the speakeasy and yanked open the door, I felt it. That tension in my chest, tight and guilty. I was late, and she would notice. The club was packed, dim, lit up with soft amber sconces and the low buzz of conversation. Her voice carried above it all, smooth and smoky like bourbon. I stopped near the back, just inside the shadows. Her silhouette glowed under the stage lights, curled hair pinned up, silver earrings swaying every time she moved. She looked like someone I hadn't seen in a long time. Dana always had presence, but this was something else. Like the room belonged to her. Like she didn't need anyone, least of all me. She leaned into the mic between songs, lips close enough to kiss the chrome. That last one, she said, pausing just long enough to let the room settle, was for my husband. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. He's not here tonight. I mean, he says he supports me, but you know how it is, support from the couch doesn't really count. The laughter got louder. A man near the front slapped the table, wheezing. Dana smiled, eyes glittering. He always said jazz was just background noise. So I figured, maybe I should start treating him like background noise, too. I stood frozen near the back wall, coat still on, heart somewhere in my throat. I should have moved to left, sat, waved. Something. But I couldn't. Honestly, I think the only thing he's ever been on time for was our wedding. And even that was cutting it close. More laughter. Louder this time. She scanned the room, letting the crowd's energy build, and that's when she saw me. Her gaze landed like a flick of cold water. For a split second, the smile slipped. Just barely. Just enough. And then it was back. Brighter than before. She launched into the next number, a sultry tune she'd written herself. I recognized it. A song about a man who loves his routine more than he loves the woman beside him. I'd heard her writing it. In our kitchen. She said it was fiction. I'd believed her. I didn't stay for the encore. I slipped out before the clapping started. Outside, the air hit like a slap, bracing, bitter. I walked back to the car in silence, every step heavier than the last. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat behind the wheel for a long time, engine off, letting the laughter echo in my ears. She'd made herself heard. To them. To me. And something in me cracked. Quiet, but permanent. The house was too quiet when I walked in. That fake kind of calm where you can smell tension before you even see it. And underneath it all, lavender. Her diffuser was running again. Dana always picked lavender when she was trying to create peace. Not real peace, just the illusion of it. I hung up my coat and stepped into the hallway. Her heels were by the door, neatly lined up. That was my first clue. When Dana was mad, she got organized. The glow from the kitchen spilled into the dark hallway. I followed it, bracing. She stood at the stove, humming to herself, wearing one of those silk robes she bought, just for around the house. Steam curled up from the kettle. Her back was to me. You're home, she said, without turning around. I am. I stood there for a second too long. You were great tonight. That made her turn. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Wow, a compliment. From the shadows, no less. I swallowed hard. I tried to get there on time. But you didn't. She turned back to the stove. That's kind of your thing lately. I parked 6 blocks away. I was late, not absent. She poured hot water into her mug, calm as ever. Her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up. I saw it. One name. Just a single letter. R. Just that. R, and a message preview. Still thinking about that last song. My chest tightened. I wasn't even sure why I looked. But I did. And now I couldn't unsee it. Who's R? I asked as casually as I could manage. Dana froze, just for a second. That slight delay before the defense kicks in. She picked up her mug. Blew on it. Excuse me. Your tablet lit up, I said. Message from someone named R. Just wondering. Jesus, Andrew. She shook her head and laughed. Not the real kind, sharp, performative. Is that where we are now? You're checking my messages. No, I said quietly. I'm noticing what's in plain sight. She rolled her eyes and turned her back again. He's a musician. We've written stuff together. Stuff like lyrics? I asked. Or jokes about me in front of an audience. That hit her. I saw it in the way her shoulders rose. You're being paranoid. I took a breath. Am I? Dana turned around, leaning against the counter now, arms crossed. You don't get to waltz in late, sulk through my set, and then play detective. You either trust me or you don't. I did, I said, before I became material. She scoffed. Please. If I made jokes about you, it's because they worked. People laughed. Yeah, they did. I nodded slowly. It's easier to get applause than honesty. We stood there in silence. Her mug sat untouched. The lavender still filled the air, cloying and artificial. Like peace, sprayed from a bottle. She finally looked away first. I'm going to bed. She walked past me without touching me. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at her tablet. The screen had gone dark, but the name still burned in my mind. 3 weeks ago, I wouldn't have cared. Now it was the only thing I could think about. And I knew this wasn't just about a late arrival. Something was coming undone. Saturday morning rolled in gray and quiet. I didn't sleep much, but Dana seemed untouched by the tension. She moved through the house like someone playing a role she'd already rehearsed. Humming, folding laundry, answering emails at the dining table like nothing had happened. I waited until late afternoon to bring it up again. I didn't want another explosion. I wanted something like clarity. She was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. 2 glasses were in the sink. I watched from the hallway for a second, just thinking. We never used 2 wine glasses. Not at the same time. Not lately. Did you have someone over? I asked, stepping in. She looked up, unfazed. What? Last night? Or this morning? Or whenever those glasses ended up in the sink? She followed my eyes to the evidence, then gave a quick laugh. Wow, you're really into detective mode now, huh? I didn't respond. Just waited. She turned to face me, leaning on the counter. I was here. He dropped off some sheet music and stayed for a glass of wine. That's it. Here. In our kitchen. She shrugged. It's not a crime to have a friend over. No, I said. But it is strange when your friend keeps texting you about your lyrics and timing visits when I'm not home. Her expression shifted. You really think I'm sleeping with him? I think you're hiding something, I said. And I think the club wasn't just a performance. It was a message. Dana rolled her eyes, taking a sip of wine. You are so desperate for a villain in this story, aren't you? I'm desperate for the truth. The truth, she repeated, almost mocking. Here's a truth for you. Andrew, you never liked what I was trying to build. Every time I practiced, you put in headphones. Every time I played you something new, you nodded like you were grading a test. That's not fair. She raised her voice a little. Isn't it? You loved the quiet version of me. The version that edited herself down to fit in our house. I stepped closer. No, I loved the version who didn't write me into punchlines. Maybe you should ask yourself why those punchlines hit so hard, she snapped. I felt my jaw clench. You turned us into a joke. Dana set her glass down a little too hard. No. I turned my silence into something useful. You just don't like that it had edges. I stared at her. You keep saying it's about the music. But this is about more than lyrics. It's about what you're choosing to share, and with who. She didn't say anything. Just held my gaze, arms crossed now. Do you love him? I asked. Her mouth opened slightly, as if to answer. But she closed it again. That silence said everything. I turned and left the kitchen, walked down the hall to the spare room, and shut the door behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, where the old stained glass window we bought on our second anniversary hung, untouched. There were still faint fingerprints on the edges from when we installed it together, back when we touched things as a team. Now, even the glass felt like it belonged to a different couple. We weren't fighting for space anymore. We were fighting for truth, and neither of us seemed willing to give it. I didn't pack a bag, didn't even leave a note. I just grabbed my keys, walked out, and kept driving. It was raining, one of those steady Midwest downpours that made the world look like it was melting. The road shimmered, the wipers thumped in a tired rhythm, and my phone buzzed once from a number I didn't know. I let it go. I didn't know where I was going. I passed gas stations, closed diners, strip malls that looked like they were holding on by a thread. Eventually, I found myself near the airport, pulled into a rundown motel with flickering neon that said vacancy like a dare. The woman behind the desk didn't ask questions. I gave her a card, signed my name, and took the key to room 204. The room smelled like bleach and stale smoke. Beige walls, a bedspread with a pattern that looked like it had been designed to hide stains, and a heater that groaned to life when I hit the switch. I stood there for a while, coat still on, like I wasn't sure if I was staying. But I did. I sat on the edge of the bed, stared at the TV, off, and pulled out my phone. I typed into the search bar without thinking. How to know if your partner is still lying. The results came fast. Lists, forums, advice columns. All of it vague and hollow. Trust your gut. Notice changes in behavior. If you feel like something's off, it probably is. I already knew something was off. I didn't need the internet to confirm that. Dana's laugh from the stage still echoed in my head. The crowd loving every jab, every double-edged lyric. And then that message from R, glowing bright on her tablet. The way her smile cracked when she saw me. The wine glasses. The silence. I lay back on the bed, shoes still on, and stared at the cracked ceiling. The rain tapped the window like it had something to say. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the screaming, fist-clenched kind of way. What I felt was heavier. Like something had died and no one had bothered to hold a funeral. Dana used to whisper dreams to me in bed. Little ones. Someday I'll record an album, or what if we moved to New Orleans? I held those dreams for her. Carried them quietly. Paid for music lessons. Stayed home while she went to open mics. Listened, even when I didn't understand. And now, I was the villain in her lyrics. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but it never came. Instead, I stared at my phone until the screen dimmed, then at the rain-streaked window until the world blurred. I felt the weight of something that wasn't quite grief, but close. A truth was settling in. I couldn't fix this. And maybe I shouldn't try. I crashed at Matt's place the next morning. My cousin lived about 20 minutes away in a split-level rental that always smelled faintly like beer and whatever he tried to cook the night before. He didn't ask for details when I showed up with tired eyes and an overnight bag I threw together on the way. Just cleared a space on the couch, handed me a blanket, and cracked open 2 beers. You don't have to talk, he said, handing me one. But if you do, I got ears. I didn't talk. Not that night. But the next afternoon, Dana called. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. Part of me thought she wouldn't reach out at all. Part of me hoped she wouldn't. Hey, she said softly. I didn't say anything. I know you needed space. But we should talk. I waited. She sighed. Can I come by? I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. She showed up an hour later, hair in a loose bun, no makeup, holding her coat like a shield. Matt made himself scarce, took his dog for a suspiciously long walk. We sat across from each other on the frayed couch. The silence was thick. I didn't expect you to leave, she finally said. I didn't expect to be a punchline, I replied. Her face tightened. It was just a set. I didn't mean anything by it. Don't lie to me. I'm not. She sounded tired. You're twisting it. You're rewriting what happened. No, I said. You rewrote it. On stage. In front of strangers. You made jokes about me like I was already gone. I was just trying to connect with the audience. It was a theme. Marital tension is relatable. God, I said, rubbing my temples. You're really going with, it's just art? She frowned. Andrew, you've been distant for months. You don't ask about my work. You don't come to rehearsals. You forget what day my gigs are. I'm working 60 hours a week to keep us afloat. I didn't ask you to. Yes, I said sharply. That's the problem. You didn't ask. You assumed. Like everything else. Her voice dropped. You think I'm cheating. I know you're not with me. That's enough. Dana looked down at her hands. They were shaking, just slightly. I miss us. I miss being heard, I said. Not edited. She reached out, but I didn't take her hand. I didn't sleep with him, she whispered. But you wrote him in. And wrote me out. That landed. Her breath caught, and for a moment, her face crumpled just a little. I don't want to lose you, she said. I looked at her, really looked. There was desperation in her eyes, but also distance. Like she wanted the idea of me more than the person sitting across from her. I think you already did, I said quietly. She stood, hugging herself. So that's it. I didn't answer. Matt came back just in time to hold the door open. Dana nodded to him as she left, and he gave me a long look as he shut it behind her. That looked rough, he said. Yeah. He handed me another beer. You gonna be okay? I didn't answer right away. Just took a long sip. I didn't know yet, but I knew I wasn't going back. A week passed. I stayed at Matt's place, rotating between the couch and the guest room depending on whether his brother was crashing or not. Dana texted twice, once to ask if I was okay, once to say she missed me. I didn't respond to either. I needed facts, not feelings. So I called Calvin. Cal was an old friend from college, the kind of guy who always knew someone who knew someone. He used to joke that if you gave him a phone number in 3 hours, He could figure out what kind of cereal you liked in 3rd grade. These days, he ran a private security firm. You want surveillance? He asked after I explained what I needed. Damn, man. I don't need photos or a wiretap, I said. I just need to know if I'm being lied to. Calvin didn't ask why. He just said, give me the name. 3 days later, he called back. His name's Roy, he said. Fitness instructor at a boutique gym in Walnut Hills. Been seeing her for a while now. On and off. But lately? On. I felt something cold settle in my chest. You're sure? I watched them myself. Couple of my guys too. They leave the gym together 3 nights a week. No PDA. Real careful. But it's them. I rubbed the back of my neck. You said, watched. Present tense? Tonight. 7:30. They usually finish their last session by 8. I sat in Matt's car at 7:20, parked across from the gym. Rain drizzled against the windshield again. Ohio couldn't seem to make up its mind this spring. I watched the entrance through fogged glass, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was holding me in place. At 7:53, the doors opened. Dana walked out first, wearing leggings and a long hoodie, her curls pulled back in a ponytail. She was laughing. Roy followed, tall, built, smiling like a man who wasn't pretending. They stood near her car for a moment. He said something, she laughed again, and then they hugged. It wasn't long, maybe 5 seconds, but it was slow, familiar. His hand rested low on her back. Hers lingered near his hip. They didn't kiss, but they didn't need to. I didn't move, just sat there, watching from the dark like I was outside my own life. They got in separate cars and drove off in opposite directions. I didn't follow. I didn't take pictures. I didn't call Calvin back for a full report. I didn't need to. Later that night, I sat on Matt's porch with a beer, staring into the quiet suburban dark. Matt was inside, watching a basketball game. I could hear the distant echo of the announcer through the screen door. I took out my phone and opened Dana's last text. I miss you. I stared at it, then locked the screen. No reply. No confrontation. Some truths don't need a courtroom. Some just show up in a parking lot, under a flickering street lamp, in the way 2 people say goodbye like they've been saying hello for months. That was all the closure I needed. And maybe more than she ever expected I'd find. I didn't rush it. I met with a lawyer from my firm, someone discreet, someone who didn't ask unnecessary questions. We kept it clean. No accusations, no theatrics. Just a mutual no-fault filing and a prepared envelope. The papers were ready by the end of the week. I went back to the house on a quiet Tuesday morning. Dana was home. Her car was in the driveway. I knocked once and let myself in. Still had a key. Still had rights, I guess. She was sitting on the couch with a mug of tea, blanket draped over her knees, tablet glowing softly in her lap. She looked up when I walked in, startled at first, then stiff. Andrew, I won't stay long, I said, pulling the envelope from my coat. She didn't say anything, just stared at the manila package in my hands like it was radioactive. I've already signed, I said, setting it down on the coffee table. Everything's fair. Split down the middle. You can have the house. She blinked. You want a divorce? I'm not asking, I said. I'm done. She didn't move. Didn't reach for the papers. Didn't cry. That, more than anything, told me we were already over. You're really doing this, she said softly. You cheated, I said. Not just with Roy. You cheated with your silence. With your jokes. With every version of yourself you showed to everyone but me. She opened her mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to apologize. I didn't wait. You didn't just break trust, I continued. You rewrote us. You turned our life into something convenient to perform. You needed a news story. And I didn't fit the part. Dana looked down at her lap. Her tea had gone cold. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. You didn't have to mean it, I said. You just had to do it. She reached for the envelope, fingers slow, deliberate. She pulled the papers out, scanning the first page like she already knew what it said. Maybe she'd been waiting for this too. She signed. No hesitation. No questions. The sound of her pen scratching across the line was quiet, but final. She slid the papers back in and set the envelope down. That's it, I asked. She nodded. Something about that moment, so simple, so undramatic, hit harder than any screaming match ever could. No last plea. No denial. Just quiet agreement. I stepped back, took one last look at the room we used to call home. The pictures were still on the walls. Us in New Orleans. Us on the porch with hot coffee. Us laughing before. But now, it all looked staged. Still frames from a movie I couldn't remember filming. I reached the door. Dana said. Do you hate me? I turned slightly, but didn't face her fully. No, I said. But I don't know who you are anymore. And I don't think you know either. And then I left. There was no yelling. No fight in the driveway. No rain for dramatic effect. Just silence. The kind that told me she'd left long before I did. I was just catching up. The house was quiet when I came back one last time. I had called ahead. Dana said she'd be out for a few hours. I didn't ask where she was going, and she didn't offer. That was fine. We were past the stage of explaining ourselves. The place felt hollow. Not empty, but used up. Like someone had hit pause on a life that wasn't coming back. I moved from room to room methodically, no lingering, no nostalgia. Just pulling out the last of my things. A box from the coat closet, a few books from the shelf. Chargers, notebooks, the cast iron skillet I refused to leave behind. The things that were mine and still mattered. I saved the bedroom for last. The sheets were different now, light blue instead of the charcoal ones we used to share. Her side of the room was neater, colder. No trace of me left, except for the half-empty drawer she hadn't filled yet. I opened the nightstand, ready to clear out the last of my stuff. A few receipts, some old headphones, a business card from our couple's therapist. And then I saw it. A card. Still sealed. My handwriting on the front. Still choosing you. I felt the air leave my lungs. It was the anniversary card I gave her 6 months ago. Our 7th year. I remembered standing in the store aisle, reading a dozen versions before settling on that one. Writing that line in blue ink like it meant something. She never opened it. I turned it over in my hands, thumb resting on the unbroken seal. For a second, I considered tearing it open myself. But I didn't. I placed it back where I found it, carefully, like an artifact. She didn't open it then. She didn't need to now. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking at that nightstand. The little lamp we bought at a flea market. The scratch on the wall from when we moved the bed and she had laughed then, said it gave the room character. Now it just looked like a scar. Everything we built was still here, but none of it felt alive. On my way out, I left the spare key on the kitchen counter. I didn't write a note. There was nothing left to say. I locked the front door behind me and stepped into the late afternoon sun. The street looked the same, familiar cars, the neighbor's kid riding his scooter up and down the sidewalk. But I felt different. Lighter, maybe. Or just emptier in a way that made room for air again. In the car, I looked back once. Not at her. At the house. At the version of me that had lived there. And then I drove away. No music. No tears. Just quiet. The letter came in a pale blue envelope. No return address, but the handwriting gave it away before I even touched it. I stared at it for a long time, sitting at the small table in Matt's kitchen, coffee going cold in front of me. Dana. She didn't text this time. No voicemail. Just ink and paper. I opened it. Read it once. Then I tore it in half. It wasn't dramatic. Just a slow, deliberate tear down the middle. Like peeling off a scab that never healed right in the first place. She had written everything I expected. I never meant to hurt you. Things got blurry. He was a distraction, not a replacement. You pulled away too. I didn't need her to explain. What I needed was distance. And that wasn't something she could give me with apologies. So I booked a trip. A solo hiking trail along the Oregon coast. It had been years since I'd taken time for myself that wasn't tied to a calendar or a holiday or a joint decision. I packed light. Left my phone on airplane mode the second I landed. The trail was all cliffside air and crashing waves. Wind so sharp it cleared your mind whether you wanted it to or not. I hiked in silence, stopping only to breathe, to stare out over endless blue, to feel the earth steady beneath my feet. On the third morning, I reached the overlook just after dawn. I sat on a rock, legs dangling near the edge, the Pacific stretching out forever. And for the first time in months, I exhaled without tension. Not relief exactly, this wasn't victory. There was no feeling of having won. It was more like a quiet loosening of everything I'd been carrying. I thought about Dana, but not with anger. Just a dull ache where something used to live. I thought about who I'd been. The man who ran late to her show, who stared at text messages like they held the truth, who waited for a glance of recognition from a woman who'd already turned the page. I didn't miss that man. He wasn't honest with himself. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the halves of Dana's letter. I hadn't thrown them away, hadn't been ready to, but now I was. I placed them on a flat rock, weighed them down with a stone, and walked back toward the trail. The ocean would take them, or the wind. Either way, they weren't mine anymore. As I hiked back down the path, sun warming my face, I realized I wasn't running from anything. I wasn't chasing closure. I was just living. And for the first time in a long while, that was enough. The apartment was small, but it was mine. One bedroom, third floor, a narrow balcony that looked out over the parking lot and a slice of sky. The kind of place people call modest in listings, but feels like freedom when you shut the door behind you and no one's waiting to ask where you've been. I painted the walls, picked out furniture that didn't match anything we used to own. A thrifted leather armchair, a battered oak coffee table. I put plants on the windowsill and started watering them like I meant it. Slowly, the space filled up with things that felt like me. Not us, not compromise. Just me. I cooked meals for one and didn't feel lonely. I hung my own photos on the walls, pictures from that Oregon trip, sunrises and foggy cliffs and trail markers that pointed nowhere but forward. One night, while I was organizing some files on my laptop, a new email popped up. From Dana. Subject line. Closure. That was it. No greeting. No teaser. I stared at it for a few seconds, my cursor hovering over the preview. Then I moved the mouse up, clicked the trash icon, and watched it disappear. Deleted. No hesitation. Because I didn't need her closure. I'd already found mine. 2 days later, I bumped into Julie at the grocery store, an old mutual friend from back when Dana and I used to host game nights and pretend we were still good at being married. She recognized me first. Andrew, she said, smiling as she pulled off her sunglasses. I nodded. Hey. We caught up by the produce section, surrounded by heads of lettuce and misting systems. She asked how I was doing, and I gave her the truth. Better. She looked a little surprised, then softened. I ran into Dana a few weeks ago, she said. She doesn't seem okay. Keeps talking about you. About what she lost. I nodded once. Yeah, well. Julie tilted her head. Do you miss her? I thought about it. About the silence between us, the feeling of being erased while still in the room. About the jazz club, the motel room, the unopened card on the nightstand. No, I said finally. I don't miss who I had to be to stay. Julie blinked. That's honest. I smiled. It's peaceful. We said our goodbyes. I picked up what I came for: coffee, eggs, a pack of those stupid frozen waffles I secretly loved, and headed home. Back at the apartment, I put everything away in its place. The radio played something soft in the background. I poured a cup of coffee and sat on the balcony, watching the sun slip behind a row of trees. No drama, no tension, just the sound of my breath in my chest and the wind in the leaves. I didn't need a performance. I didn't need forgiveness. I had truth now, and that was enough.